G'day mates, Salty Feet back again. This is my Marvel follow-up video to my expectations on the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite roster, so I'm going to assume you watched that previous one on the Capcom side, but it doesn't really matter for this one. I think in general the Marvel side is a lot easier to predict because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made it so that a lot of the slots are basically locked up, I think. I mean, all the main characters of the movies are just so popular these days. But those remaining slots could be really hard to predict because there's still so many popular Marvel comic characters that aren't featured in a movie at the moment that Marvel could want to push. Obviously, it's impossible for me to list every character that could possibly be picked because Capcom are rather notorious for picking their wacky characters from the Marvel side. I mean, I definitely would have missed MODOK if I was making a list for 3, but I'll try my best. So, let's just get that easy movie stuff out of the way first. I'm sure if you're all keen enough on the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite roster to be watching my videos on it, you've probably seen the rumor going around that there'd be no X-Men or Fantastic Four characters in the launch roster, but some would come as DLC. It's unfortunately a pretty realistic rumor. No X-Men or Fantastic Four characters have appeared in a Marvel game released after Contest of Champions. So while we might see Phoenix, X-23, Magneto, Storm, or Sentinel as DLC, we're probably not getting them in the launch. I'm not sure where Super Skrull fits in license-wise, whether he's considered a Fantastic Four villain, but since his first appearance was as one, I'm going to put him here just to be safe. So far, the lack of X-Men has included the Maximoff twins, except for LEGO Avengers, despite their appearances in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I've left them off here as well. Capcom would probably be happy to not have to come up with a moveset for Scarlet Witch anyway. I am willing to give a few of them slight odds, since I could see Marvel changing the policy slightly after some recent events with Fox, mostly the trade they made around the Deadpool movie. I think we could see Wolverine, since really no matter how hard Marvel tries, they're never going to be able to stop people wanting to go see a Wolverine movie. With the quality of the last few Wolverine movies, I'm pretty sure Fox have been trying to get people to stop watching them as well. Deadpool has so many currently running comics at the moment, and is even on the Uncanny Avengers, that I'm not sure Marvel even care about trying to stop Fox. But with the recent success of the Deadpool movie, I don't think they would have been able to do anything about it anyway. And lastly, Doctor Doom, since Marvel and Fox have succeeded in making sure no one ever wants to see a Fantastic Four movie. He's also just so important to the Marvel Universe as a whole, being a villain for so many different characters, and he's actually currently starring as a hero in his own comic at the moment, as Iron Man in Infamous Iron Man. As for obvious inclusions, I don't think anyone is going to disagree that we're going to see all the founding Avengers return. I was tempted to not put her up here, but I really can't see Black Widow not making her debut in this game for any reason other than sexism, to be honest. Spider-Man will also obviously be coming back. He's been Marvel's icon for years, and he's even now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Doctor Strange was heavily pushed by Marvel back in Ultimate, and now that he's had a really good movie as well, I'm certain he'll be returning. Lastly, and people may call me out on this one, but I'm 100% sure Iron Fist will be returning. He definitely needs some revamps to his moveset, but as one of Marvel's few karate experts to challenge Ryu, and with a Netflix series coming up, I think he's a definite. Hopefully he's a bit better in this game so Justin Wong can finally win EVO with him. The main reason I don't have Star-Lord in this top tier is that, knowing Capcom, they could just reuse Rocket as a solo representative of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm pretty sure we'll get both Star-Lord and Rocket, with potential for Groot being integrated into Rocket's move list now that assists are gone, or maybe Star-Lord and Gamora. Guardians is a pretty big deal these days, and there's a new movie coming out so soon that'll no doubt be a big hit, so I think all 3 is even a possibility. Ant-Man's size changing has a lot of potential for a moveset in a series like Marvel vs. Capcom, where the devs can just go nuts. If he gets in, it means Capcom will have to make a new level 3 for Hawkeye as well. I'm hoping he'll have a level 3 where we finally get to play like one of those iconic, giant Marvel vs. Capcom bosses like Galactus or Apocalypse or Onslaught. Going tiny would be a good way to have a Dragon Punch that has a reason for being invincible as well. Black Panther has been a popular and important character to the Marvel comic universe for a very long time, and I've honestly been quite surprised that he hasn't made an appearance in this series yet. Given his importance in Civil War and his own upcoming movie, I think he's pretty likely to make it now. I think it's a shame Reed Richards is stuck due to the Fox situation, and Namor's movie rights are god knows where, because I think Black Bolt has a pretty good chance, with the upcoming Inhumans TV show and their big push in general by Marvel, and it could have been neat to get all the Illuminati at the time of Secret Wars and Infinite for story purposes. We could also see Medusa, but I'm sure we'll get at least one of the Inhuman royal family. Medusa's probably easier to make moves for, with inspiration coming from characters like Guilty Gear's Milia, but I think Black Bolt is more iconic, so we'll just have to wait and see. Something that I think could be really neat, though, would be that, now, obviously Black Bolt doesn't talk, normally, right? So, what if all his lines in his intro and wind quotes were done with sign language, with the regular subtitles on the bottom telling us what he was signing? The small touches in the Marvel characters' lines in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was one of the things I liked most about that game, so I think a lot about little things like this. I'm slightly unsure about Bucky and Vision, because neither will be leading a movie anytime soon, and Bucky would be pretty generic moveset-wise. I admit, I haven't actually looked into any popularity charts for them recently, but they just kind of feel B-team-ish. I also think Marvel will try to avoid having their roster be entirely movie characters, because A, that would upset the die-hard comic fans since it'd leave out quite a few big names, and B, that reduces the amount of current advertising they can do for the comics. So, I think Bucky and Vision will probably miss out, but it really just depends on what type of story Marvel wants to tell here. Vision could get in purely because Movie Vision has the Mind Stone, after all. Now, if you look down at the bottom of this list here, you'll see that quite a few of the characters on the chopping block, thanks to the Fantastic Four and X-Men problem, are villains, leaving quite a villain-shaped hole so far. This is made even harder thanks to the movies not really developing that many of its villains. I mean, if you go out and try and find merchandise for Ronan compared to merchandise for Rocket Raccoon, you'll see that Marvel just doesn't seem to care about that many of its movie villains, with the main exception of Loki, who I think has a pretty solid chance of getting in because of that, as well as Tom Hiddleston's great performance making him one of the most popular movie characters. I know Needsummer commented that back in 3 they didn't think he was suitable for a fighting game, but that opinion has probably changed now that he's been seen fighting in a few of the movies. There's definitely room for a trickery-based moveset in Marvel vs. Capcom. Just one example of a cool move he could have would be, say, a fake beam, where the animation is the same as his regular beam, but the mortal performing it is an illusion, and the real Loki has gone invisible and can move around. The beam wouldn't have a hitbox on it or anything, but it'd just be a nice way to, like, bait your opponent into sitting down and not doing anything to try and block this beam that isn't really coming. One of the other movie villains that Marvel seems to care about is Ultron. The teaser at the end of the reveal trailer that I mentioned in the previous video was probably a hint for Sigma, is also probably a hint for Ultron, as the head of the silhouette looks quite similar to his iconic head shape. Plus Sigma and Ultron would make for a thematically really cool villain pair. I do hope it's classic comic Ultron though, because I really can't stand movie Ultron's lips. Dormammu will probably return, since he was cool in 3 as one of the game's hardcore keep-away characters, and he's now been established in the movies, even if he was barely in it. I'm pretty sure Thanos will return from MVC 2, because honestly, how many Infinity Gem stories have you read that don't involve Thanos? I imagine he'll get a revamped moveset, because Marvel will probably want moves that represent Thanos better than a big bubble and a shoulder tackle. Personally, I think a really cool super would be a level 5 that gives Thanos the complete Infinity Gauntlet and all the gem power-ups, with that iconic Infinity Gauntlet cover referenced in the Super Flash. There's definitely a lot more they could do with him than was done in previous games. When he's being an anti-hero, Ronan is one of my favourite Marvel characters, but he hasn't done all that much lately in the comics, and as mentioned previously, Marvel doesn't seem that interested in pushing most of their movie villains. He would have a lot of potential for a moveset, with his universal weapon giving him the capabilities for things like force fields, flight, and time control, even though he barely used it in the movie except as a hammer. So I would like to see him, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Lastly, and as a good way to transition to Netflix characters, I think Kingpin has an outside chance, since he'd have a pretty unique silhouette, is one of the more popular villains in the MCU, and was apparently considered for MVC 3, only just being beaten up by MODOK. As I mentioned before, removing assists does open the way up for more summon-based characters, like with Groot, and Kingpin would definitely be able to summon some goons. Ultron would also probably be able to use summons, actually, now that I think about it, since Ultron does tend to use drones, but they might just be kamikaze projectiles like Sentinels. So, Netflix characters. I was pretty surprised that Daredevil wasn't in 3, because we would have been able to make a team of 3 lawyers with Phoenix Wright and She-Hulk, but I'm pretty sure he'll finally get to make his debut here. There's definitely a lot you could do with such an acrobatic character with such unique weapons, though his heightened senses would probably be difficult to represent in a move. Luke Cage was cut from Ultimate due to time constraints, and he's been a pretty big deal in the Marvel Universe for a fair while now, and he just got a Netflix series, so he'll probably make it in here. Jessica Jones I left off here because moveset-wise, I don't think there's much she'd be able to do that Luke Cage or She-Hulk wouldn't be able to do. And since She-Hulk has always been pretty popular with the dedicated comic fans, I think she's got a better shot at returning. Also, She-Hulk is one of Combo Fiend's waifus. I've also got Punisher as an outside shot here, because I think there'll probably be too many gun-focused characters for him to make it, but if I'm wrong about one of the gun users, he could definitely make it in. He was basically the star of Daredevil Season 2, after all. I haven't been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because the first season kinda let me down, so I stopped, but I've been told that a Ghost Rider shows up in it. I honestly would have expected Ghost Rider anyway. He's a pretty iconic and unique Marvel character, and helps divvy up the representation between Standard Marvel, Cosmic Marvel, and Mystic Marvel. I don't think people really care that much which Ghost Rider it is, either, as long as it's a guy with a flaming skull head who's incredibly metal. Which makes this a pretty good time to transition into veterans who aren't in a movie or TV show yet. The Nova Corps are in Guardians of the Galaxy, but Al Nova, Richard Rider, certainly isn't on the big screen yet. He's just launched a new comic book recently, so Marvel could be keen on bringing him back into the spotlight. If there's an important cosmic element to the story as well, that'd definitely help his chances. MODOK has an incredibly unique silhouette, an incredibly unique playstyle, and he's got his own little fan base now for just being so wacky, so I also think he's a pretty good shot. Marvel keep joking about having him appear in the movies, and we all keep laughing, but eventually, we all know they're not gonna be joking, and we're gonna walk into a cinema and be mind-blown when we see MODOK appear. Taskmaster was both pretty surprising and pretty cool in 3, but I can't imagine him being terribly important to any story they could come up with, and as cool as he was, his playstyle wasn't super unique, so I'm not sure about him coming back. I don't even know why Shimigarath was in 3 to begin with, or why anyone at Capcom wanted to bring him back, or why Marvel agreed to it. So unless he's somehow the villain of the next Doctor Strange movie backing Baron Mordo, I don't really think he's gonna hope. But Capcom have shocked me once with his return, so I'm not really gonna count him out. A lot of people felt that Spider-Man being the only Spider character in 3 was quite odd, since Spider-Man was definitely the most well-known Marvel hero. Iron Man might be contending for that spot now, but I don't think anyone is gonna argue that one of Spider-Man's iconic villains should probably get a spot. But which one? We could see a return of Venom, with his awesome body-warping moves, and getting to see Venom Web as a full cinematic super would be pretty cool. I often see comments of, well, people want Eddie Brock, and it won't be Eddie since he hasn't been Venom in ages, but I honestly think people care a lot more about the symbiote than who's underneath it. The other two main options are, as everyone probably knows, Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. Green Goblin, contrary to popular belief, actually fights off the glider a fair bit, and can remote control it, so he could be a cool keep-away or trapper character using the drone, glider, bombs, and other such weapons. Doc Ock has similarly a ton of potential with all his technology, and all sorts of cool movement options he could have by extending his robot limbs. Maybe he'd have a Spider-Man-esque air dash where he grabs onto the invisible ceiling and swings. Pretty much every Spider-Man villain would make a cool character. I'd really be keen to see Mysterio or Kraven the Hunter, but I don't think they're a big enough name to get in over those 3 I just mentioned. There's one other Spider-Man character I could see, but this one isn't a villain. Miles Morales was the most popular Ultimate Marvel character back when that existed, and now that he's been folded into regular 616 Marvel, they definitely want to push him even harder than before. He also has different powers to Peter, such as his Venom Blast, so there's much more reason to add him than, say, Spider-Gwen or any of the other Spider clones. I feel like we'll probably only see him if there's 3 Spider-Man characters in the game, but that's definitely an option. It is Spider-Man after all. Lastly, I'd like to go through some characters that I couldn't segue well into other sections. The current Ms. Marvel, Kamala, is one of Marvel's most popular new characters in years, and she's also an Inhuman, which is a license Marvel's been trying to push quite hard as mentioned before, so I'd bet on her appearing. Plus, Skrull's leaving, so we need someone to take up the stretchy limb mantle. Adam Warlock has been a mainstay of Cosmic Marvel for quite some time, including being a main character of the original Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and a founding member of the new Guardians of the Galaxy. He's yet to appear in the movies, but I have heard rumors that he'll be appearing in Infinity War. It would make sense with how closely he was tied with the Soul Gem in the comics, which still hasn't appeared in the movies, but grain of salt. Regardless of being in the movies or not, he's got potential for a diverse moveset, has the popularity to make it, and he's strongly tied to a major theme of the game, the Infinity Gems. Howard the Duck is wacky and has a unique silhouette, which is something Capcom likes a fair bit in Marvel vs. Capcom games, but he's also got one other thing going on for him that I haven't seen many people bring up. Back in the 90s, Capcom did quite a few Disney games, including Darkwing Duck and recently HD re-released DuckTales. Howard could have a cool moveset consisting of his own quack fu and references to these Duck games, since Disney is almost certainly not letting Scrooge in. He recently appeared in a mech in Contest of Champions, but I think something more true to his characters would be better here. I'm a big fan of Moon Knight, and I see him requested everywhere on the forums I go to, but I feel like that's not that indicative of Marvel's fanbase in general. I'd love to see him here, and one way to diversify his moveset could be with some of the Egyptian artifacts he's collected over the years. But he doesn't play very well in group-up stories, and Marvel's never really been that interested in pushing him. We'll just have to see if the fan demand is enough. One last character I'm a big fan of, but definitely not holding my breath for, is Man-Thing. I think he's got slightly better chances than Moon Knight because of his unique silhouette and interesting moves he'd allow with his powers of melting himself and controlling vegetation. He could be similar to Nemesis as a big grappler with good long-range options, but his melting powers would make him more evasive than the brick wall Nemesis. He's also got an upcoming comic series written by R.L. Stine of Goosebumps fame that I'm very excited for. So, I think he's got a shot, but not a big one. So now that we've gone through what I think both sides of the roster could be, who would you be most excited for? Or is there someone you think I've missed? I think, based on my guesses, I'd probably play a team of Virgil and Thanos, or maybe Ultron on day one, but obviously I'd try the entire roster. Since the initial announcement, I've done almost nothing but play Marvel 2 and 3, so I really hope we don't have to wait much longer for news. I'm so happy that my favorite fighting game series is getting another release, and with an actual story mode as well. I really hope you're all as excited as I am, and that I get to see you in tournaments sometime.